Good evening, I'm Robbie Alampay. The big stories tonight. It is no longer just the British variant of COVID-19. Authorities are looking into 3 other versions already being reported in other countries. The contacts of the Filipino helper who tested positive for the UK variant are in the meantime already under quarantine. The family of Desara is still unconvinced that her friends were innocent. They believe the cabin crew was drugged. They also filed a complaint against the medical legal officer whom they say prematurely embalmed her body. City Grand Garden Hotel, where the incident took place, faces the possibility of a 6-month shutdown. The tourism department says a quarantine facility should not be accepting guests for leisure. It is the eve before Traslación and devotees continue to flock to Chiapo Church. Despite the pandemic, authorities estimate crowd number to reach 6,000 every hour. And finally, outgoing U.S. President Donald Trump has conceded. He also condemned the mob which stormed the U.S. Capitol despite repeatedly urging his supporters in the past to reject the election results. Let's start with health officials monitoring 3 more variants of COVID-19 detected in other countries. This as the close contacts of the Filipino worker who tested positive for the UK variant in Hong Kong have been tested and are now under quarantine. Greg Gregorio with the big story.
The health department has identified the close contacts of the 30-year-old OFW who tested positive for the more infectious COVID-19 variant in Hong Kong. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosales says her close contacts are now under quarantine and have been subjected to RT-PCR tests. Their specimen have also been sent to the UP Genome Center to check if any of them will test positive for the UK variant.
Ngayon po, yun pong mga naging contact retroactive, binalikan po namin yung kanyang lugar, inaalam po natin ngayon kung sino pa mula nung dumating siya dito sa Pilipinas.
Vergere chairs the newly created Technical Working Group on COVID-19 variants. They are monitoring other reported COVID-19 variants which have been detected in South Africa, Malaysia, and Nigeria. In an interview with One Who Says the Chiefs, DOST's Dr. Jaime Montoya, who co-chairs the TWG on COVID-19 variants, assured the public that vaccines will still work despite these mutations.
Although it affects that particular region, hindi po ito major. And since the vaccines actually induce antibodies to the whole spike protein, ang changes kasi na na-identify is only parts of the spike protein, hindi yung buo.
The World Health Organization says at this point, there's no reason to believe that a new variants will have any impact on vaccines.
But this is, we're in a dynamic space right now, and unless we have information that there are changes to the vaccines, so we'll get more information, but there's no reason to believe at this point that there should be any impact on the vaccines.
The WHO notes that more vaccine candidates will be included in its emergency use listing in the coming weeks. Its solidarity trials in the Philippines will begin by end of January or early February, although participating vaccines have yet to be named. For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
The government earlier confirmed that China's Sinopharm is set to apply for emergency use authorization here in the Philippines, but a Chinese vaccine expert is warning about its possible adverse side effects. What are those? Maricel Halili tells us.
Most unsafe in the world. This is how a report from a Taiwanese news website described China's Sinopharm vaccine. This was the brand supposedly administered to the members of the President's security group. Citing a vaccine expert, Taiwan News reported that Sinopharm's vaccine has around 73 side effects, including loss of vision. Shanghai-based vaccine expert Tao Lina identified other side effects like high blood pressure, loss of taste, and delayed menstruation. He claims that all 73 side effects are already listed on the vaccine's manual. Tao posted this claim on his Weibo page, but it was immediately taken down by Chinese authorities. Sinopharm has been granted conditional approval in China after garnering a 79% efficacy rate. Sinopharm, along with another Chinese vaccine, Sinovac, are both expected to apply for emergency use authorization in the Philippines. But speaking on One News agenda, FDA Director Eric Domingo says there has been no communication between them and Sinopharm.
So far, Sinopharm is not, we have no indication that they will submit soon. I know that what will submit soon is probably.
The Health Department also assures the public that should Sinopharm apply for EUA in the Philippines, their documents will be thoroughly assessed.
Pag nakita natin na hindi siya sukat, it's not going to be appropriate and will not be safe for our population, hindi po natin siya bibigyan itong authority na ito. So hindi po kailangang mangamba ang ating mga kababayan.
As for Sinovac, Dominguez says it has already inquired about EUA requirements. FDA evaluation on Pfizer is expected next week after the U.S. drug maker applied for EUA in December.
We worked through Christmas and New Year's holidays through that, and we're at the end of the evaluations for that. They finally gave some answers to the last questions we had yesterday. So our evaluators and our experts are looking into that, and the recommendations are coming very soon.
The FDA says they are also checking the application of AstraZeneca, which was submitted this week. AstraZeneca's authorization may be released after 3 weeks of evaluation. Russia's Sputnik, on the other hand, has withdrawn its application to conduct phase 3 trials here in the Philippines.
Napakasimple ng rason nila. Mag-a-apply na sila ng emergency use authorization. Kaya hindi na sila magki-clinical trial dito.
DOST Undersecretary Rowena Guevara says the government is currently in talks with 25 bilateral partners for vaccine negotiations. For News 5, Maricel Halili, we are One News.
A more extensive version of CCTV footage shows more details on the final hours of Christine Desara. Starting 11:21 p.m. on New Year's Eve, Christine, together with her friends, had been transferring back and forth from their room 2209, and then room 2207, where a different set of guests were staying. Basing it on the video alone, the constant switching between the two rooms happened until around 6 in the morning the following day. There were moments when Christine was already being carried back to their room. According to her friend's testimony, Christine was still breathing at around 10 in the morning. But hours later, they found Christine lifeless in the bathtub. It was almost 2 in the afternoon when Christine was rushed to the Makati Medical Center due to lack of transportation.
Bandang 10 a.m., nagising ako to check Christine doon sa CR. Okay pa siya, huminga pa siya, gumanon siya. Without saying anything or open her eyes. Sabi ko, sige, matutulog ka pa pala. Then mga bandang 12 or 12 na, nagising ako, pumunta ako sa CR, tapos tinatry ko na siyang gising. Napapansin ko, parang hindi na siya humihinga. Tapos, hinahanap ko yung pulse niya, negative, breathing, negative. Doon ako nagpanic.
If the narratives of Christine's friends are to be believed, the cabin crew alleged that a certain Marc Rosales supposedly put an unknown substance in her drink. News 5 tried looking for his whereabouts, but he is nowhere to be found. The News 5 team tried to find Marc Rosales in their salon in San Juan, but their staff says they last saw Rosales before the new year. News 5 also tried to contact their phone number, but Rosales could not be reached. Senator Manny Pacquiao, meanwhile, kept the bounty at 500,000 pesos for those who will be able to locate other individuals involved in the incident. The senator noted, though, that if those involved will voluntarily present themselves to authorities, the bounty will be handed as financial aid to the Desara family. Congressman Eric Yap, meanwhile, says his bounty is already moved. We'll go for a quick break. When the big story returns, the family of Christine Desara is seeking accountability for the medico legal who handled her body. An administrative complaint has been filed. And City Grand Garden Hotel may face a 6-month suspension for having accepted leisure guests. The details next. Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. Authorities are now looking at possible liability on the side of the medical legal officer who handled Christine's body prior to autopsy examinations. Guests in room 2207, where Christine frequented hours before her death, are also up for questioning. Jenny Dongon has the story.
The camp of Christine Desara remains convinced that there was foul play in the death of 23-year-old flight attendant. For them, Christine's friends, whom she spent her last hours with on New Year's Eve, must be held responsible. Attorney Reyes insists that aside from being intoxicated from hard liquor, Christine had been drugged, possibly with ecstasy.
Plus the injuries on the knees, injuries on the hands. You cannot have all of these injuries by dapa-dapa. This, we believe, is consistent with resisting what was happening. 16 men, 1 woman. That kind of a ratio is disproportionate, and we believe that there was some kind of a plan that they would entertain themselves with Christine. With the drugs, especially if they had used ecstasy, then you can understand the incoherence and the behavior of a person who uses ecstasy.
The Desara family believes the respondent should refrain from using the LGBT card, saying it is not a valid defense.
But if they will keep on saying that we are LGBT and therefore we are not liable, which is a lot of BS, then we will proceed and we will really proceed with the prosecution of this case against them. This is unbailable.
They are now urging Christine's friends to cooperate and give more information on what transpired that night.
Tell us the truth and be honest about what happened. Point to the persons who supplied the drugs and maybe those whom they saw perform the sexual acts on Christine. Then we will consider they're being made as state witnesses, so we will drop them from the case.
Eyes are also on Police Major Michael Sarmiento, who could face charges for alleged mishandling of medical legal procedures. Reyes says Sarmiento must be held liable for gross negligence and gross incompetence after reports that the Desara's body had already been embalmed before being examined. Reyes says the Desara family has filed an administrative complaint against Sarmiento before the Philippine National Police.
Sabi nga ni PNP Chief Sinas, may lapses tayo dito. Because the general procedure is you do the examination first before you do the embalmment, because otherwise apektado yung examination mo, di ba? I think it's common sense.
Even NCRPO Chief Brigadier General Vicente Dano Jr. admits lapses on the part of Sarmiento, but at the same time, he said embalming protocols are the new norm this pandemic. However, he says it should have been applied only to COVID-19 related deaths.
Ang take ko kasi dyan, siguro because of the new COVID protocol, especially in times of pandemic, meron po kasing bagong guidelines ngayon na pag yung cause of death, okay, lalo na sa panahon ng pandemic, dapat imbalsamuhin muna.
Dano says they will look into Sarmiento's possible culpability. If mishandling is proven, an administrative case will be filed against the medical legal officer. Meanwhile, authorities are calling on other persons of interest who stayed at the room 2207 to give their sworn statements. The CIDG will be tasked to issue subpoenas against them. Dano knows that Christine stayed in this room longer than in room 2209, where she was checked in together with her friends. For News 5, Jenny Dongon, We Are One News.
Authorities are looking into the possible shutdown of the hotel where flight attendant Christine Desara had spent her final hours, while City Garden Grand Hotel maintains its innocence over alleged quarantine violations. It is also in hot water for a supposed false advertisement. Shiloh Francisco with the details.
The City Garden Grand Hotel in Makati asserts no quarantine protocols were violated on the night of Christine Desara's untimely death. The Tourism Department has issued a show-cause order last Tuesday demanding the hotel to explain why it accommodated guests for leisure purposes despite being tagged as an isolation facility. In its 4-page letter, City Garden maintains that those who checked in are considered as permitted guests. DOT NCR Director Woodrow Makiling says its reply gave more questions than answers.
Assuming that they are permitted guests, hypothetically speaking, the very reason for quarantine facility is to limit movement. It appears so that this particular booking was only made for this particular purpose, which is the New Year's Eve celebration of the group. And this is also manifested and corroborated by the persons involved.
Makati City demands for an explanation about City Garden's alleged quarantine violations. It has also issued another show-cause order threatening to revoke the hotel's business permit for alleged false advertisement. A customer complained that City Garden offered a New Year buffet dinner at 3,500 pesos per head and overnight stay on December 31.
With regard dito sa mga ibang bookings na nangyayari ngayon, that's always a cause of concern for us because we had always assumed na nag-ooperate sila under the guidelines.
The DOT conducted a physical investigation on the hotel property. While the agency says it found discrepancies between the hotel's explanation and official information, Makiling praises City Garden for being cooperative.
But that's why we have this due process, so we can ascertain all the facts and we are able to provide a better conclusion to this matter.
The DOT looks to come up with its resolution next week. If found at fault, City Garden's accreditation will be suspended for 6 months. Its certificate of authority to operate will also be revoked. One News tried to get City Garden's side but declined to give a comment on the matter. The hotel management says it will issue a statement soon. Shaila Francisco, we are One News.
The House Committee on Constitutional Amendments says political provisions will not be touched as lawmakers restart talks on charter change. Panel Chairman Ako Bicol Party List Representative Alfredo Garbin says only so-called restrictive economic provisions will be amended. This mainly involves those under Article 12 of the Constitution. Garbin says the goal is to give Congress more flexibility to enact laws in tune with the times. This would include provisions on foreign ownership, particularly in public utilities.
Marami yung agam-agam that it will touch on the political provisions, especially term limits or term extension. Wala akong ganon na direktiba sa akin ng ating speaker.
And these are the other big stories tonight. Meralco customers will have higher bills at the start of 2021 following a series of deductions last year. January's bill is now 8.75 pesos per kilowatt hour, a 27 centavo increase from December's rate. That should amount to a 55 peso increase for households consuming 200 kilowatt hours. Meralco attributes the uptick to higher generation charges. Philippine Eagle Pag-asa has died at 28 years old, just a week shy of turning 29. The Philippine Eagle Foundation says Pag-asa succumbed to parasitic infections. Pag-asa is the first Philippine eagle to be bred and hatched in captivity via cooperative artificial insemination. And oral arguments on the petitions questioning the Antiterror Law will begin January 19, but of the 37 petitioners, only 8 lawyers were approved to present their case. This was the consensus reached by the councils during the preliminary conference. All attendees must test negative in their RT-PCR tests 72 hours before oral arguments. And we'll take one more quick break. When the big story returns, let's take a look at the situation in Chiapo Church, where devotees still go by the thousands despite the pandemic. And a day after his supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol, outgoing President Donald Trump finally concedes defeat. Good evening, I'm Robbie Alampay. You're still watching The Big Story. A day before the Feast of the Black Nazarene, devotees continue to flock to Chiapo despite church officials discouraging physical attendance. Romel Lopez is in Chiapo for more details. Romel, how big is the crowd now?
Yes, Robbie, as of this evening, we can see a decline in the numbers of devotees who are coming here at the Chiapo Church. But the whole day, thousands of Black Nazarene faithful flocked the area despite the COVID-19 threat. Authorities and volunteers are trying their best to impose minimum health protocols for everyone's safety. Devotees of the Black Nazarene continue to arrive at the Chiapo Church since this morning. The elderly as well as the youth went to the church to show their devotion to the Black Nazarene. For some devotees, never mind the pandemic as long as they get to fulfill their yearly tradition. The line even stretched to Quezon Boulevard from the church entrance in Villalobos Street. According to the crowd estimates, around 6,000 devotees come and go every hour in the whole vicinity of Chiapo Church. Some even came from Davao City to Manila months ago just to see the Black Nazarene up close.
I swear to God, this is my first time. First time talaga. I have my problem na nasasaktan ako. So, this is my first time na lalapit ako sa kanya. May panata ako na kailangan kong tumulong para kasi digong na tumutulong kami sa nangangailangan.
Despite the large crowd, volunteers and authorities are ensuring that the health protocols are observed. Wearing a face mask and face shield should be followed at all times. Church officials and the Manila City government are happy so far with the compliance to the minimum health standards, but they have some requests to the devotees for tomorrow.
Wag na pong dadalhin yung mga malalaking imahen. Bawal po yung karosa, bawal yung truck, bawal yung pinapasan, pero yung mga pwede nyong bitbitin na pwede nyo itong dalhin para mabasbasan sa kada misa. Yan, pwede yun, basta maliit, papayagan sila ng mga kapulisan.
Manila Mayor Isko Moreno inspected the area. He also announced that classes tomorrow are suspended since signal will be jammed. Selling and drinking of alcohol will also be prohibited starting 12 midnight until the next day. Violators of the order and existing protocols will be apprehended.
Pinakikiusapan ko, huwag kayo magtitinda ng alak. Baka makancel lang inyong mga business permit. Lang naman saglit na panahon lang. O tapos huwag magiinom sa kalsada. As much as possible, gusto ko nga kusang pagsunod.
Ayon sa pamagitan ng iyong espiritu, inyong banal na mga kaloob na ito.
Rabbi, authorities clarified that the signal jamming is just a precautionary measure. Then there are no threats or there are no existing threats for tomorrow's event. Authorities will also strictly implement security protocols just like the previous years to ensure everybody's safety. Rabbi?
Maraming salamat, Romel. That was Romel Lopez reporting to us live from Chiapo in Manila. Now time for the big stories in sports. A look at the game with Lara Lehman.
Thanks, Robbie. In the NBA, the Brooklyn Nets upset the league-leading Philadelphia Sixers in a dominant win, 122-109. In the absence of superstars Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, the Nets rallied behind Joe Harris, who scored a season-high 28 points on 11 of 19 shooting from the field. 4 other Nets players would score in double figures as the Brooklyn offense overwhelmed Philly to grab their 5th win this season. The Nets will face the Memphis Grizzlies tomorrow, Manila time. Catch the NBA regular season action on NBA TV Philippines. Now on to the PBA. Meralco Bolt's rookie Aaron Black is officially among the candidates for the Most Outstanding Rookie Award in the PBA's 45th season. In cares that winning the award would mean for him and his career.
Winning this, what would it mean to you?
It would mean everything to me. I mean, this might be the only bubble conference ever. So for me, just to have your name put in the history books as on this year he was the best rookie. I work, just like I said, I worked so hard for it, and it's just it's something that I would enjoy definitely. I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't want the award. As well as it's a credit as well to my teammates and my coaches. Because without them, I wouldn't have been able to even be in the conversation for that award.
And that's it for the latest in the world of sports. Catch us on later at 9:30 p.m. on One News and One Sports Plus. I'm Lara Liman, and this has been The Game.
Thanks, Lara. A day after hundreds of his supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol, outgoing U.S. President Donald Trump has finally conceded that President-elect Joe Biden will be America's next president. He also condemned the recent violence, saying rioters had defiled the seat of American democracy. That is despite Trump himself having repeatedly urged his supporters in the past to reject the results of the November polls. Social media giants have temporarily suspended his accounts after repeatedly violating rules and posting disputed claims. Trump says his focus now is to ensure a smooth transition on January 20, with Democrats Joe Biden and running mate Kamala Harris taking office. A Filipina is taking New York by storm through her leche flan donuts. Former commis chef Kimberly Camara sells purely Filipino-flavored donuts in her online bakery, Cora. The New York Eater reports that the online shop has an 800-person wait list, but the store only sells around 275 donuts a week. Camara says the restaurant was named after her grandmother, Corazon, whose death last year led Camara to discover her old recipes, including one for leche flan. The leche flan donut, which is a brioche donut filled with leche cream and topped with flan, is Cora's signature product. But the New York bakery also sells other Filipino-flavored donuts like champurrado, mango, and Sans Rival with tanduay rum buttercream. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. Signal channels 8 and 250. Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. I'm Robbie Alampay. We are One News. Good evening.
May kita kayo
LED?
sa
Ah, I see.